All right.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great, man. Tell
How
it's
did
cold where you are.
yeah, it's freezing, man. I'm like got double sweaters on. How did the state championships go?
They were tied for sixth place, basically the team was, but
Okay.
because of Olivia, we got fifth place because her
Wow.
she was a sixth place runner and beat their sixth place runner. Um,
Cool.
so yeah, the boys got third place for state and the girls got fifth.
Nice. Nice work.
Yeah. Of course, my daughter's super competitive, so she was not happy. She didn't set a personal record. Um,
Right.
but I'd rather have her be competitive like that and a little down. I mean, I know it sounds bad, but I'd rather have her be a little bit down on herself because that
Yeah,
keep that competitive energy rather than be like,
absolutely.
eh, you
Yeah,
know.
I did the best I could.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Right.
That's
Yeah.
cool. I'm gonna drop the offer link into, should I drop it into the chat?
You can do that. And I will just take it because if you do that and we close this, it might not still exist. So I'm going to take it and put it somewhere else.
Okay.
So I don't want to do that. Let me copy this. Copy and I'm actually gonna put it in our chat if that's all right.
Yeah.
That'll be there, so I can go back to it.
Okay, cool.
Um, so how do you want me to introduce you? So this is just
Mhm.
going to be recorded. It's not going. I used to do these live, believe it or not,
Wow.
but now I just decided to record them instead.
Hmm.
So do you want me to? Is it want me to do Watt, Ron Watt, PR Pro, trusted by Fortune 500?
Yeah, that
And
sounds perfect.
okay, all right,
And
and
then
he
I'll just take it from there.
okay, all right, and I wish let me see if I can because what I'd like to do is switch the screen to you, but I don't think there's a way to do that without turning it over you as the host.
Okay. And then I'll be able to share my screen, right?
Yes, let me set that up. Let me make sure
Okay.
that's on. Yes, so that's set up.
Okay,
Oh,
cool.
so I'll just change it to speaker, right?
Okay.
So then that'll be primarily you because I won't be speaking much at all after I introduce you. So, um,
Right, exactly. Okay, let me just get my deck up.
let me pause recording. Hello, Trailblazers, and welcome to another edition of Entrepreneur Strategies, Tactics, and Tips in the Entrepreneur Journey Group. And today I have fellow Trailblazer Ron Watt, and Ron Watt is a PR pro trusted by the Fortune 500, and he has some incredible training for us. And without further ado, I'm going to turn over the floor to him.
Thanks, Doug. I appreciate it. As you mentioned, my name's Ron Watt Jr. We're trusted by the Fortune 500. I've had my own agency for about 16 years, and we primarily service the Fortune 500. However, we've noticed that there's a need in the marketplace for small businesses to garner their own publicity. So that's what we're going to talk about now. Three fundamental laws of publicity. This training isn't going to take very long, but hopefully it's going to get your juices flowing and to get you thinking about how you can get publicity on your own. So three fundamental laws of publicity, laws thy shall know to get publicity. First off, you're going to need to know thy audience. So there's macro and micro media. Macro media is the mass media and trade outlets or business to business outlets. And then there's the micro media, which are bloggers and podcasters. So macro media, to give you an example, would be Fox News, CNN, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and then it would be trade outlets such as if you're in the solar space, Solar Power World or Green Tech. And then there are smaller micro media, which are bloggers and podcasters. And these are very important, influential people as well. It's just they're smaller, therefore we call them micro media. one of the things that you're going to want to know is who is your target audience. Again, know thy audience. And I'm going to use this as an example. If you're in the solar business, just for instance, and you seek media outlets that align with your topics and audience, you're going to want to go after the trade publications or the macro media in that particular place. And for instance, it might be Solar Power World or Green Tech, et cetera, et cetera. If you're in photography, it would be Photography Magazine and stuff like that. So what you want to do is kind of align it to where the vertical and the space that you're playing in. There are two ways to create media lists. The first one is to buy a list, and there are services that you can subscribe to. They're fairly costly. I mean, $500 to $1,000 a month. And honestly, if you're not going to be blasting out tons of press releases or anything of that nature, you probably don't need that method. I would create your own media list by simply understanding what journalists have written about your topic, and then Google those contacts and create a simple spreadsheet from there. So again, know thy audience. We're now going to move into the second rule, fundamental law of publicity, and that's know thy story angle. So you guys may have been growing up and you've heard this in school, the 5 W's and the H, the who, what, where, when, why, how. First off, let's understand what a story angle is. It's a viewpoint from which a story is told. So the story angle will involve the who, the what, the where, the when, the why, the how. You really have to keep that in mind when you're crafting your story angle. And one of the things that you have to ask yourself, it's a hard question. Why should your targeted media care to do a story? I mean, seriously, really, why should they even care? If you can't answer that question, then you have to go back and craft your story a little bit better. One of the easy ways to align your story angle with topics in the marketplace is to Google topics that align with your story angle. For instance, if you're writing, again, I'll use solar as an example. You could write solar sales or Google solar sales and then look at the different topics that have been written about that, and then identify those media that have written about that, and then build that into your media list. We're now going to move into the third fundamental law of publicity, and that is thou shalt pitch well. So this is your handshake with the media. Like any handshake, you only get one chance to make a first impression, and you want to give a strong handshake. So a pitch letter, which is essentially, it should only be about 3 paragraphs max, and it tells your story to the media. You want to make it strong because you only get one chance. So you're going to prepare your story angle in this written pitch to the media. And again, your pitch letter should be short and sweet, highlighting the personal angle or the part that really matters. And one of the things that a lot of people do is they just expect the media to take what they have and run with it. That's simply not the case. You need to build in time for follow-up. 75% of the media, including the micro media that we spoke about earlier, are simply too busy to read through every pitch. I just got an email from a journalist in the trade publications about a recent post that I did about the media being too busy to handle press releases. And she said that she couldn't agree more with what my post was, which is the media is really busy. So you have to try some different ways to get in touch with them. You need to pick up the phone. Don't be afraid of that. You need to email them to follow up on your pitch. And so that makes the third law of publicity, thou shalt pitch well. What we're going to talk about now are some myths about publicity. Let's see here. So myths about publicity. First off, this isn't rocket science, okay? We're not dealing with Elon Musk and trying to send people to Mars. This is publicity that you're trying to get, and there are certain methods and processes that if you're done correctly, you will get the publicity that you want. Myth number 1, you need a PR agency. That's absolutely false. You do not need a PR agency. I don't know, I might be hurting myself by saying that because we're a PR agency first and foremost, but you don't need a PR agency in 2021. And that goes into myth number 2, which is you need relationships. You don't need relationships with existing media. That is a fallacy. What you do need is a strong story. Your story will end up creating that relationship with the media because you're helping them out by giving them a great story. The myth number 3 is that you need special targeting software. Again, this is a fallacy. I mean, we have databases at our agency that we know what the media likes in their coffee. I mean, it gets really granular, but you don't need that. You just need a special media list that you can create on your own based on the topics that you have researched and the media that have written about those particular topics. So those are some myths about publicity. And again, I want to stress that in 2021, it's never been easier to get your own publicity. So you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a PR agency per month. Now, next are some next steps. Now, if you wanted to kind of take this little mini training, and this is short, but if you wanted to take it into some next steps, what I would recommend doing is find your audience by examining who is writing about the topics you're covering, okay? Build that media list. Use the 5 W's and 1 H to craft your story angle and pitch. Remember to ask yourself, why would someone want to write about me? And really delve into having a great story angle. The third is pitch your story. Remember, that's that handshake with the media. You're going to email the editor or journalist with your story angle. And then finally, if you have any questions, just schedule a strategy session with me. It's bit.ly/PR machine. And that about wraps up the training for now about the 3 fundamental laws of publicity. And hopefully what this does is just get some juices flowing about how you can garner your own publicity without pulling in a PR agency for thousands of dollars a month.
I'm going to hop back in here if I can. And do you mind if I ask you a couple questions?
Absolutely.
So can you kind of talk on the value of getting PR for those that have not maybe explored that option before as far as marketing?
Yeah. So the great thing about PR, Richard Branson once said, the famous billionaire from Virgin Galactic and Virgin Records, he says he would far more take a publicity article than a full page ad in the newspaper. And the reason is that publicity creates a third-party validation. So you're going through the media, which is putting their stamp of approval on it. And by that stamp of approval on it, you're boosting your reputation. Now, one of the ways that it could actually help boost your bottom line revenue is the following. Here's a case in point. We had a client that wanted to introduce a new service. So what we did was we created a PR campaign for them. They introduced the service, got the publicity that they wanted. People read about the publicity and then went onto their website and ended up contacting them for services and stuff like that. So at its very fundamental level, publicity will create awareness, it creates brand reputation, and it will drive people to your website or to your offer to buy your services.
If I could expand on that as someone that builds websites and funnels and things like that, everybody talks about the authority piece, right? And the trusted, know, like, and trust factor. When you've been featured in the media, that know, like, and trust, you gain more authority and your know, like, and trust builds. So when you have those elements to put on your landing pages or on your website, it goes a long way in converting a lot of the people, the traffic that comes to those sites.
It absolutely does, Doug. I mean, the fact of the matter is, if you go to a website just as a personal person, just going around checking out other websites, if you see as featured in Fox or Forbes, et cetera, in the publications that meet your vertical, you immediately have that instant credibility. And there are studies that show that that creates an 86% boost in credibility. So they will follow through and scroll down that web page.
Yeah, that is awesome. So another question I have for you is you mentioned emailing the editor, the story angle. Are there other methods to get in contact with media other than email?
Absolutely. So obviously we live in a day of social media. A lot of media likes to be contacted via Twitter. So if there is a particular media person that you want to follow, you follow them on Twitter, and then you will DM them a story angle and say, hey, I have a story angle. Can you meet with me to discuss, or something of that nature? So we've used Twitter a lot. There's also LinkedIn. So you would want to connect with that editor or journalist on LinkedIn. You can do a DM that way. And then finally, Facebook. You can connect with them on Facebook and do a DM. So the most important thing is that you conduct outreach on a couple different levels. So you want to do a phone call, you want to do an email, and I would say you want to sprinkle it in with some socials, such as a Twitter, Facebook, or LinkedIn DM.
That's an amazing tip. Next and probably final question for you. So say someone would reach out to you. Are you going to help them craft their story so that it appeals to the media?
Yes. So what we do is we do it with you. So it's done with you program. We have a 10-week program. It's called PR Machine. It's essentially a PR boot camp that gets the client ready to generate their own publicity. So we'll go through and create the different toolkits needed, such as the press kit, the news release, the story angle crafting. We'll generate the media list with them. So when they're done with that program, or even during the program, they'll be able to garner their own publicity and start getting placements as soon as possible.
That sounds awesome. So thank you for this training. And I highly recommend, if you don't already have PR as part of your marketing in place, that you reach out to Ron at the link that's going to be posted below the training here, and get that part of your marketing rolling, because we've already established how much that can affect your business.
Yeah, I really appreciate the time that everyone has and for this mini marketing, and we'll see you down the road.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.